Hi, it's Mary. I hope that you are doing well. Thank you for joining me here today. If you remember last year we did some tree identification. And to identify the trees we used the leaf, we used the bark, and we used our knowledge of those combined to help us identify what the tree is. At this time of year, at least here where I am, we don't always have all the information to help us identify the trees. So we are going to do some tree and shrub identification in the spring woods today. And we're going to start with this beautiful tree behind me, the paper birch. Sometimes people confuse the identification of paper birch and trembling aspen, so we're going to look at how to identify them today. The one thing that aspen and paper birch have in common is that they both have a whitish bark. If you look at the lines on the paper birch, they go horizontally. It's very aptly named because the bark peels off in layers like paper. At this time of year in the spring, the paper birch has catkins, but it has no leaves. If we look at the aspen at the same time of year, and this is a trembling aspen, you can see there is whitish bark, but as the tree gets older, the bark goes darker. The furrows are vertical, and the trembling aspen already has its leaves. One of my favorite shrubs is the American hazel. It has numerous stems, and already this time of year there are leaves. So you can see the shape of the leaf there. And it also has its catkins. One of our fruit-bearing shrubs is the chokecherry. And here are its leaves. And if you notice, the young leaves have a reddish tint to them also. It is a single stem. And the bark is gray to gray-brown. We also have a serviceberry in our woods. This particular serviceberry was two larger stems, but recently those stems broke and fell over. And so now we have multiple stems, and this is one of our earlier flowering shrubs. You can see that it's getting its buds to start to flower. So one of our earliest blooming trees is the Juneberry. The Juneberry has a grayish bark, and you can see the leaves starting. A couple other plants starting to grow in our spring woods is the Columbine. And it is not flowering yet, but it is growing. We've got dandelions. They just started opening probably last Wednesday. And if we look back at the Columbine, you can notice a bud starting right there. Our wild strawberries are starting to grow. And I have found one violet in our yard. So those are some of the trees, plants, and shrubs